Radha is a little nervous. She's been running with them, and she's actually getting pretty good at it. But she's never really finished, so if you get upset with her, she'll probably learn.
Hey, I always tell everybody, I'm not a professional.
That's what we like about it.
So I played with all the levels of mridanga players and harmonium players. It's,
What are you going to sing, Pooja?
I thought you wanted me to sing Radhika. So,
Radhi Jai Jai Madhava Dayati, that sounds perfect.
I can sing that.
No. I'm speaking on Prabhupada's response.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Radhe Jayo Jayo Madhava Dayate Radhe Jayo Jayo Madhava Radha
Krishna. Just get set up again for one moment. Anybody wants me to look at them, you should sit over here. Otherwise I have to look in the computer. Yeah. So? He has to go. We won't. If we do more kirtan, it won't be until 7:30.
You just messaged me.
Probably not. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Sorry for a little confusion. Gaunitai Prabhu, we missed you last week. Nice to see you. Brajabanita, Hare Krishna. Gaunitai Prabhu says, peaceful, deep bhajan, thank you. He's a special welcome from France. They miss you in France. Agnidev Prabhu is thinking about going to France. There's some invitation there, but Gaunitai is dancing up and down. He hears that. But right now he can't go anywhere. He's locked down. Gaunitai Prabhu, you should write to the Indian government and tell them they should make some special arrangement to let him out. But maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should just let him stay here. So anyway, we're going to continue with our discussion. Tonight, we started this Radhika Ashtakam because we were reciting this every day during a Purushottam month, and then we missed a few sessions because we got a little sick. And last week we did the first part of verse 5. So if everybody has their Radhika Ashtakam prayers with them, we can recite that together. Anapayani, if you grab my phone over there, I can find it real quick and we can offer. Yeah, you can give it to Agni, but I can not that phone, the other phone. Sorry, we're not so organized here. Just pretend that we're Hare Krishna devotees. Okay. Does anybody else need Radhika Ashtakam? Mataji does. Anapayani. So there's one here on my phone. You can share this with them. Just don't let Gauranga Prabhu see it.
I'm just waiting if somebody comes. I have to go.
Okay. Okay, so we're just reciting text number 5, and this is a poetic translation which is done by Dravida Prabhu. Very, very nice. Krishna Kun, have you got it there?
I have it.
Why don't you and Anapayani look on together, or whatever. Okay? Text 5 only. We ready? Rasa lasya gita narma satkalali pandita prema ramya rupa vesha sadgunali mandita vishvanavya gopa yoshit ali topi hadika mayamatma pada padma dasya dasturadika. In arts like dancing, singing, joking, Radha is by far the best. She shines with endless traits divine like love and gorgeous form and dress. Among the famous gopis of Vrindavan, she's supremely sweet. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Goragra ganya gana gotra goloruhadam Goranga Gudatama Gopyada Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Rati Dam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Vanchakalpa Darubhischa kripa sindhu vyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Turn off the light outside. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll just repeat a little bit of what we covered last week. Rasa Lasya Gita Narma Satkalali Pandita. That we spoke about the arts. And how of all the different arts, all the different kala, they originate in the Ras Leela. And we spoke about the sequence of the arts and how that begins with Rag, with Krishna blowing on his Venu. Shiman Rasa Dasadambi Vamsi Vata Tatastita Karshan Venu Sonar Gopir Gopinata Shriestanaha. Gopinath Krishna playing on his flute at Vamsi Vat and calling for all the gopis of Vrindavan. And that's called Rag, or in crude way to try to translate it, we may say melody. And then the gopis, they went running there. And then the next thing was Tal. The gopis, they began playing different musical instruments. And our acharyas have described that all the different arts originate with that Ras Leela. So it begins with Rag and then Tal. And then after you have Tal, the next thing is they have some nritya. They have some dance, some sangeet. They begin to sing. And we read some different descriptions about the Ras Leela from Srila Prabhupada. Very interesting how in 1968, Madhudvesa Prabhu asked Srila Prabhupada, can you say something about the Ras Leela? And in the recording, Prabhupada's silent for a moment. And then he begins to speak about how this is very confidential and we shouldn't speak about this and this is very high and you can't understand. And then he starts talking about the Ras Leela and how Krishna was dancing with all these young girls in the middle of the night, and very, very sweet thing. So Rasa Lasya Gita, Lasya means kind of dance, but it's particularly a dance which accompanied by musical instruments and singing. And Gita again means singing. Narma means joking. According to the Vaidagda Vilas, we were reading from last week. We'll again read something from it this week, I think. According to the Vaidagda Vilas by Manohar Das, who's a Vaishnava in the line of Jagannath Das Babaji, this Ras Leela is a source of all the different arts. And it begins with, as we said, there's a certain kind of sequence, and then there's dancing, and then everyone gets tired after that. And then what do they do after that? That's Madhu Mangal's time. And he stands up and he does some narma. He does some, what would we call it in America? Stand-up comedy. And he speaks in such a way they're rolling on the ground and laughing, because that's and then there's some prasadam, which is also one of the arts. And we didn't mention, but prior to all that, there's also, they're planting gardens, and they're doing flower decorations, they're doing paintings, they're making costumes, they're doing makeup. All the different arts originate with that Ras Leela. So we spoke something about that Ras Leela and about the origin of the arts. Today I'd like to try to speak something especially about this particular word, narma-paṇḍitāḥ, and how Srimati Radharani is the best in this joking, and how important that is in terms of rasa. And then if we have some more time, we may go on to Prema Ramya Rupa Vesha Sadgunali Mandita, how Srimati Radharani is the embodiment of love for Krishna. Now we may have some question about this topic. Srila Prabhupada generally didn't speak on these things, but I found a very interesting conversation. In 1969, Prabhupada had on December 24th with the BTG staff. And they were asking Srila Prabhupada, at that time the editor was Satsarup Maharaj, and they were asking Srila Prabhupada what about standards. And at one point they asked Srila Prabhupada, should we print things about the gopis and Krishna? And Prabhupada's reply is as follows. Prabhupada said, the policy should be that the people may not understand gopis like ordinary girls or like that. You should be careful to present the gopis. But it does not mean that we shall not utter the name of the gopis. We've not taken a vow to boycott the gopis. Right? We don't want to boycott the gopis. Prabhupada said, no, they are our worshipful devotees. How can we avoid them? Again, in another famous book, Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, there was a brand new person who at that point didn't even want to be a devotee yet. His name was Bob Cohen. And he became the very famous, wonderful Brahmatirtha Prabhu, who was really one of the gems of Srila Prabhupada's society, I think. And so Prabhupada was speaking to him. Bob Cohen asked this question. He says, does a devotee keep his individual likes and dislikes? And Prabhupada said, yes. But he gives preference to Krishna. Krishna likes this thing, and Krishna, so we offer Krishna what he likes. And Krishna likes Radharani. Krishna likes his gopis. And then Bob Cohen, at the time, Brahmatirtha Prabhu, he asked an interesting question. He says, is Krishna attentive to rascals? And Prabhupada replied, oh yes, he is the greatest rascal also. And Brahmatirtha Prabhu, Bob Cohen at the time, said, how can you say that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a rascal? And Prabhupada started laughing. And Prabhupada said, because he's always teasing the gopis. Yes. Sometimes when Radharani would go out, Krishna would attack her. And when she would fall down, she would say, Krishna, don't torture me in that way. They would fall on the ground and Krishna would take an opportunity to kiss her. Srila Prabhupada starts laughing again and he says, so Radharani was very pleased. But superficially, Krishna was the greatest rascal. So unless rascaldom is in Krishna, then how can rascaldom exist in this world? I want to read you another excerpt from some of my favorite series of lectures of Srila Prabhupada. This is from the Nectar Devotion Lectures. And this particular one was in Bombay on the 10th of January 1973. And listen to what Srila Prabhupada says. Krishna wants to be controlled by Yashoda Mohi. Krishna wants to be defeated by his friends. Krishna wants to be refused Radharani's darshan. When Radharani is angry, she refuses to allow Krishna to see her. She orders the Sakhis, don't allow Krishna to come here. Then Krishna flatters the Sakhis, kindly let me go. No, sir, you cannot go. And Prabhupada said, this is Krishna. So as we spoke at length in the beginning of our last discussion, it's not that Srila Prabhupada never spoke about the Ras Leela or the gopis, or that Prabhupada outlawed that, but it should be done in a certain way, and it should be done with devotees who have faith. Vikriditam bhajavadu biridam cha Vishnu shradan vito nishanayad. That shradan vito must be there, that faith must be there. And faith in what? Well, different ideas are there. Some devotees say that that's a very high platform. You should have complete faith, and that means after you pass through an artanabriti. But from the examples of Srila Prabhupada speaking to Bob Cohen about Radharani, from the examples of Srila Prabhupada speaking to Madhudvisa in 1968, very, very early, they didn't know anything at that time. And Srila Prabhupada was speaking to them about the Ras Leela. How could he do that? Well, my humble suggestion is that Srila Prabhupada saw they had faith in him. And if devotees have faith in the speaker, just like we've seen here in Mayapur sometimes some devotees have tried to give classes and speak things maybe from Govinda Lilamrita or this or that in the Bhagavatam class, And they find, much to their surprise and disappointment, that it's not appreciated. And they get censored, they get in trouble, right? Why is that? There's nothing wrong with the subject matter, but what's wrong is if people don't have faith in you. And therefore, it's very important that we have sanghas where devotees have some faith in the speaker, they have some faith in the kirtan leader, and they can enter together in a very intimate way. So, a very important aspect in rasa. And when we say rasa, we're not just speaking about some very high thing, Radha and Krishna, but when we speak about rasa, we're speaking about relationship. And a very important aspect of that, which originates in the Ras Lila, which is one of the arts, is narma. Some of Krishna's most intimate friends are called Priya Narma Sakhas. Again, that word narma is there. Narma also means sport or pastime, but in the context it's being used here, and in the context that Srila Rupa Goswami explains, as we'll go to in a few moments, in his Ujjvala Nilamani, narma is referring to joking words. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written kind of an expanded commentary, we could say, on this Radhikashtakam. And it's a bhajan darpana, or a song commentary. And he describes there, Raga tambulita oshta kutilya kajala spasta smita karpurita narmasila kirtiyasa antapure garba katta padispure dulita prema vaichityamala. He describes the beauty of Srimati Radharani and how raga tambulita oshta, here in this case rag has a number of meanings. Rag means attraction, rag means this kind of melody, but rag also is the color red. And raga tambulita oshta, Radharani's lips, he's describing how she looks, they become very red from chewing betel nuts. And kotilya kajala spashta. She has this kajal, spashta, this black kajal, this collyrium, they call it sometimes. It's a kind of, they make it for Lord Jagannath, it's one of the colors for Jagannath. They put honey in a silver bowl and they burn that and it makes a kind of black soot. And it's very healthy for the eyes. And that's one reason why Krishna and the gopis wear that around their eyes. But here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, it's not just kajala spashta, that Radharani has that black kajal around her eyes, but it's kotilya kajal spashta. She has this kotilya. Kotilya means crooked, or it means cunning. This black collyrium of cunningness is clearly visible on her eyes. Smita karpurita. She has smita means smile. It's just like karpur, like very nice camphor, which is very, very cooling. And when Krishna sees the smile of Srimati Radharani, his vipralamba agni, his fire of separation, becomes cool, just like karpur, camphor cools something. And he says, he describes her as narma sila, that she's very, very fond of joking words. This is one of the qualities of Srimati Radharani. Kirti yasya antapure, she sits on a bed, and that bed is a bed of pride. And it's in the palace of fame and glory. Yasa means fame. Mother Yashoda, Yasoda. Yasoda means someone who gives yasa, who gives fame. So she's sitting on a bed of pride, Antapuri, in the palace of fame and glory. And Dulita Prema Vaichitya Mala. She has a garland, a Prema Vaichitya. Very difficult to explain Prema Vaichitya. Vaichitya means transformations. It's also, Prema Vaichitya means, it's one of the four types of separation. But here, it means the transformations of ecstatic love. Dulita Prema Vaichitya Mala. She wears this garland like this. So Srimati Radharani is narma-paṇḍitāḥ. She's the Pandit of Satkalali, of all the different arts. Pandit here means the guru. And in our last session we spoke and gave so many examples about how She's the guru of Krishna, and how she teaches Krishna to dance. And we told a wonderful story, I think was wonderful, how Srimati Radharani, during a Ras Leela, instructed that Krishna should dress up like a girl. And then Krishna should begin to dance. And Krishna began to dance, I like that section so much, with one toe. And then he started dancing with another toe. And then he began to dance with just one foot, while the gopis are playing different musical. And then 2 feet. And then with his knees. And then he was on his knees and sitting down. He began to dance with his hips. And then with his chest and with his arms. And then with his face and his eyes. And then with his whole body. And then, a little later, they began piling things on Krishna's head. And they put like a bowl there and a pitcher, and they stacked up all these things. And Krishna then began to do all these different dances, culminating finally dancing with his fingers. And Krishna didn't drop, and everybody was laughing in complete ecstasy to see Krishna's dance. But Krishna, each time it's described, he would start a different dance. Srimati Radharani would snap her fingers and point, like this. Yes, right away. Because Krishna is a disciple of Srimati Radharani. And Srimati Radharani, Rasa Lasha Rupa Vesha Sadgunali Mandira, Rasa Lasha Gita Narma Sat Kalali Pandita. She's a Pandit of all the dancing. Pandit means a guru also, not just a learned person, but she's a guru. And she's the ultimate guru, even of Srimati Radharani. So this joking words is a very important part of rasa. And we see Srila Prabhupada did like this. I remember hearing one discussion, some of the devotees in India, they were complaining to Srila Prabhupada. For those of you who have been to India or have lived in India for some time, we all complain about India sometimes. I mean, it's just, sometimes I tell devotees when things get really rough, when you're packed into an auto rickshaw and the electricity goes off, the modem, the internet goes off, I say, just pretend that you're in India. Because that's the way India is, right? So anyway, one of the qualities of India is that everybody wants to cheat you, especially if they see you're from the West. I remember the first time I went to Jagannath Puri with Fakir Mohan Prabhu, we arrived on the bus, and when we got off the bus, all of a sudden there was this huge group of rickshawallahs practically attacking me. Some of you may have experienced this sometimes. And we just wanted to go to the Jagannath Mandir, which from the bus stand was like maybe 10 rupees. And they're telling me, sir, 200 rupees only with me. And Fakir Mohan Prabhu was looking at me and he was laughing. So anyway, once some devotees went to Srila Prabhupada and they were complaining, Prabhupada, India is very bad. And here in India, everybody's trying to cheat us. All the Indian people, they're very crooked. And Prabhupada said, yes, I'm also from India. Prabhupada said, I've also cheated you. And Prabhupada in that way was speaking in a very sweet, humorous way. That humor, that narma, is a very important part of rasa. If there's no narma there, things become very, very dry. And we see that even during a Ras Leela, that Priya Narma Saka, Madhu Mangal, who some Vaishnavas say later expands himself as Narad Muni, who is another great jokester. Madhu Mangal has a role in the Ras Leela. He does the stand-up comedy act and makes everybody laugh. So Prabhupada writes about this laughter and the importance of laughter, atihasita, a particular kind of laughter, in chapter 25 of Nectar Devotion. And I'll read you what Prabhupada writes. It's a very beautiful thing. Krishna once addressed Jarati, Thasna. Jarati is this old lady in Braj. And Krishna told her, my dear good woman, the skin of your face is now slackened, and so your face exactly resembles a monkey's. As such, the king of the monkeys, Bali Mukh, has selected you as his worthy wife. It's really pretty bad, isn't it? While Krishna was teasing Jarati in this way, she replied that she was certainly aware of the fact that the king of the monkeys was trying to marry her, but she had already taken shelter of Krishna, the killer of many powerful demons, and therefore she had already decided to marry Krishna instead of the king of monkeys. On hearing this sarcastic reply by the talkative Jarati, all the cowherd girls present there began to laugh very loudly and clap their hands. This laughter, accompanied by clapping of hands, is called atihasita. And we can see Krishna was defeated. Although he's Bhagavan, he's the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna was defeated by that laughter of the gopis. Prabhupada goes on, sometimes there are indirect sarcastic remarks which also create atihasita circumstances. An example of one such remark is a statement which is made by one of the cowherd girls to Kutila, the daughter of Jatila and sister of Abhimanyu, the so-called husband of Radharani. And Prabhupada goes on, he says, indirectly, Kutila was insulted by the following statement, where the gopis spoke to Kutila and they were glorifying her. They were speaking words of appreciation to Kutila. And what did they say to Kutila? Our dear Kutila, daughter of Jatila, your breasts are so attractive. They're as long as string beans. They're dry and long. And your nose is so gorgeous. It defies the beauty of the noses of frogs. And your eyes are more beautiful than the eyes of dogs. Your lips defy the flaming cinders of fire. And your belly is as beautiful as a big drum. Therefore, our dear, beautiful Kutila, you are the most beautiful of all the cowherd girls of Vrindavan. And because of your extraordinary beauty, I think you must be beyond the attraction of the sweet blowing of Krishna's flute. So this is also, what's the phrase? Double talk. It's also known as parokshavad. When the gopis, they say one thing, but they mean another thing. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in one place, says the gopis are all the residents of Vrindavan are very, very expert at that. The parokshavad is the behavior of a high-class person. They say one thing, but they may mean another completely different thing. In Ujjwal Nilamani, in chapter 4, Rupa Goswami describes in 6 verses the 25 prominent qualities of Srimati Radharani. And Rupa Goswami, he says that Bahuna kim gunastasya sankyatita harer eva. That you can't, sankhya means to count. You can't even count the qualities of Radharani, just like you can't count the qualities of Krishna. But out of Srimati Radharani's wonderful, unlimited qualities, still there are 25 which are prominent. And number 9, I won't go through this long list, but number 9 of those 25 qualities, Rupa Goswami says, narma-paṇḍitāḥ. That she's the pandit of Narma. She's very expert at joking. And he explains this, he says, Atta narma-paṇḍitāḥ, explains this narma-paṇḍitāḥ quality of Srimati Radharani. Vamshastvam upadhyayaya kim upadhyaya tavat tabang seva kula yuvati dharma haranad asti vayor na param karma. And he gives this verse which describes the words of Srimati Radharani to Krishna. And Radharani says, do you teach the flute, or does the flute teach you? There's no other engagement for both of you other than stealing the good conduct of young, chaste women. So who's following who? Vamshastvam upadhyayaya. Are you teaching the flute, or the flute is teaching you? You both have this nature. When the flute plays, then the gopis, the ladies of Vrindavan, they lose their good qualities of chastity, and they can't control themselves, and they have to go running to Krishna. So there's many, many different examples of this. We'll touch on a few of Srimati Radharani's expertise in Narma, and why she's called Narma-Pandit. Rupa Goswami in his Padyavali, he gives a nice example, which he calls Radhaya Sahare Vakko Vakyam. It's a conversation. Vakko Vakyam means a conversation back and forth between Srimati Radharani and Krishna. Angulya kakavatam prahadati kutile madhava kim basanto. No chakri kim kula lonahi dharani dhara kim vijiva fanindra. Naham gorahi marikim asikagapatir no hari kim kapisho. Radha vani biritam prahasati vadana patu vaschakrapani. It's a conversation. And Srimati Radharani, she says, who is that knocking on my door? And the voice comes from the other side. And said, oh, crooked girl, it's me, Madhav. And Radharani then, she replies, using a different meaning for the word Madhava. She says, Madhava kim vasanto? Madhava is the name of spring, Vasanti. Has springtime come knocking on my door? And Krishna kind of rolls his head. He says, Chakri, it's me, the holder of the Sudarshan wheel. And Srimati Radharani replies, Kim Kulala? Kulala means a potter. And she says, a potter also has a wheel. Are you a potter? You make pots? And Krishna says, no. He says, it's me, Dharani Dara, that person who holds up the entire world. And Srimati Radharani, she says that Jiva Fani Dvijviva Vani Indra, that snake, Dvijiva, means a person has a split tongue, means a snake, whose Fani Indra is Ananta Sesh, the king of the snakes. He's holding up the world. Is that you? And Krishna rolls his eyes again. And he says, no, Naham Gora Ari Mardi, I am the crusher of snakes. And then Radharani says, Kim Asi Kagapati? Does that mean that you're Garuda? Because Garuda, he crushes the snakes. And then Krishna rolls his eyes. He says, no, Hari, I'm Hari. And then Srimati Radharani says, Kapisha. That Hanuman, a monkey, the monkey king Hanuman. Hari is also a name for him. Are you Hanuman? And Krishna, when he heard these words from Srimati Radharani, Krishna became defeated. And Krishna smiled. So Rupa Goswami describes more. Kasthambo nisi keshava sirasi jai kim nama gavayase badreshori aham gunai pitri gatai putra shikim shadiha chakre chandra mukhi prayachasinu mekundim gatim dohanim itam gopa vadu jito tarataya hrino haripatuva. Again, there's a knock on the door. Who is there in the darkness of night? It's me, Keshava. And Radharani says, what is this? Keshava means hair. Why would hair approach me? And Radharani says, Gavaya, you say you're a very proud hair. How is hair approaching me? And Krishna says, hey, Badre, beautiful girl. Sori aham guna, it's me, the grandson of Maharaj Surasena. And Srimati Radharani, then she says, Gunai pitri gatai. What use is a worthless son of a virtuous grandfather? And then Krishna says, Ihan Chakri, it's me, the holder of the Sudarshan wheel. And he addresses Radharani as Chandramukhi, the moon-faced girl. And Srimati Radharani, she says, oh, you're a potter who spins a wheel. Are you going to give me a bowl or a pot or a milk bucket? And again, Krishna becomes embarrassed by these clever replies of Radharani. So this is a definition of art. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced Rupa Goswami to his most intimate associates, such as Roy Ramananda, Srup Damodar, Nityananda Prabhu, and others, he had Ramananda Roy at that time requested Rupa Goswami to recite some of his poetry. And Ramananda Roy recited some of the beginning verses of his Lalita Madhav. And Ramananda Roy at that time commented, Kim kavyena kavistasya kim kandena danusmata parusha hridaye lagnam na grunayati yachchiraha. Very beautiful. Prabhupada translates this verse. What is the use of a bowman's arrow or a poet's poetry if they penetrate the heart but do not cause the head to spin? And so this is art. And Srimati Radharani is narma-paṇḍitāḥ. This is one of the arts, the art of joking sweet words. And there's so much rasa in this. Rupa Goswami, he says that on one occasion Krishna came to Srimati Radharani. Vasa sambrati keshava kabhavato mudvekshane nanvidam vasam bruhi sata prakama subhage twadgata samsargata yamin yam musita kvadurta vitanur mushnata kim yamini Sore gopa vadum chalai pariyasan evam vidai patuva. Krishna once came to Srimati Radharani, and Radharani, she asked him, Vasa samprati Keshava, my dear Krishna, where is your basa? Basa has several meanings. Basa means a place where you're living. It also means your residence. It means some fragrance. And another meaning is your dress. And Srimati Radharani really meant to ask Krishna, where is your dress? And Krishna took the meaning as residence. And so he replied to Srimati Radharani, my dear captivate, at this time my residence is in your beautiful eyes. And Radharani then, she said, again, similar word, vasa. I wasn't asking about your residence, I wanted to know about your dress. And then Krishna took the word vasa as fragrance and said, oh, I've assumed this fragrance just to be associated with your body. And so Krishna also, he's speaking in this kind of very clever way, very, very tricky kind of way with Srimati Radharani. I'm going to jump on a little ahead here. This is from a very rare song which we translated and printed in issue 165 of our Krishna Katamrita Bindu magazine. This is by a poet named Ganesham. He's not to be confused with Ganesham Chakravarti, who's another name of Narahari Chakravarti, who is the author of Bhakti Ratnakar. But this is another Ganesham, who's from the Murshidabad district of West Bengal. And he's the author of a book called Govinda Rati Manjari, which is a book of 46 devotional poems. And he describes this wonderful thing. Once Krishna came to Radharani's door and knocked. And Krishna asked, who are you? And so this poem, this song, consists of the questions and answers. Koiha puna puna koroto hunkara harihama janina koro pradachara. Radharani asks, who's making that roaring noise? Hunkara. Hunkara means a very, very loud noise. And harihama, Krishna, he replies, it's me, Hari. It's me, Krishna. And Radharani replies, Pari Hari Sogiri Kandara Maja Mandire Kahe Ayuba Migam Raja. Radharani became confused. She said, I don't understand. How is it that a lion is going to leave his mountain cave and come in, because the word Hari is also means lion. And then Krishna, he says, no. So Hari Naho Madhusudananam Shalokamalayat Madhukaritam. He says that I'm not that Hari, that lion. My name is Madhusudan. Now Madhusudan refers to the killer of the demon Madhu, but it also means a honeybee. And when Krishna tells us to Radharani replies, Edani sonaha ham gana shyam tanu vina guna ki kahi nija nam. She says to Krishna, then you should go to some lotus pond and find a female bee. She's humiliating Krishna in so many different ways. And so then Krishna replies, Edani sohnaha ham gana shyam tanu vina guna ki kahi nija nam. He says, I'm Ganesham. But Ganesham refers to Krishna, who's like a cloud, like a black cloud. But it means Krishna is like a cloud, but it also means a dark cloud. And Srimati Radharani, then she replies, Tanu vina guna ki nijanam. How can some mere quality that doesn't even have a specific body say its own name, Nijanam? And Krishna shakes his head. He says, Shama murati hama tuhun ki na jana tadapatibaya buji anumana. He says, I'm Shamurari. Shamurari means a dark complexion one, but it also means complete darkness. And Krishna says, you don't know this, you don't understand this. Tuhun ki na jana. And Radharani says, Tadapati bhai buji anumana. She says that, I suppose that you're afraid of the moon because you're dense darkness. But a jeweled lamp is burning here. So how can dense darkness enter into this place? And Krishna again rolls his eyes. He says, Gara hun ratana deepa ujiyara kai chane paita baghana andiyara. And by the way, when we speak about the different arts, one of the prominent different arts in the Ras Leela is poetry. And the words between Krishna and the gopis. That originates also in the Ras Leela. So then Krishna says, it's me, Radharaman, which means the lover of Radha. But it also, you can take the word to mean the full moon found in the constellation of the star, Radha. And Radharani says, Raka Rajani Naha Gana Andiyar. There's no full moon tonight. The sky is dark. Krishna rolls his eyes. He says, Parichaya Pada Jabi Sababela Ana Tabahin Pada Bava Mana Lakana. And so in this way, Krishna, he admitted defeat. And at that time, the poet Ganesham says, Abba Ganeshama Manorata Pura. His desire was fulfilled, seeing Krishna defeated in this way. So I'd like to tell you tonight also one of my very favorite stories, a little bit condensed. This is from chapter 7 of a very rare book in Bengali, which has never been translated, except we've translated some of it, and we tell some stories from it quite often, by Manohar Das. I mentioned him a little earlier. And this particular chapter is called Prema Pariksha Leela, or the testing of love. And it's kind of a reflection, for those of you who are a little bit well-read, of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's book Prema Samput. And in Prema Samput, Krishna comes dressed as a demigoddess, as a girl, and starts speaking all kinds of bad things about Krishna to Srimati Radharani, to test Radharani's love. And Radharani's, no, I don't accept that. So in this story, it's just the opposite. The Srimati Radharani, she's dressing herself in disguise and going to Krishna, and she's going to criticize Radharani before Krishna to see what Krishna says. And from this story, you can really see how Srimati Radharani is narma-paṇḍitāḥ. She's the most expert in the art of joking. So one day in Javat, Radharani was sitting with some of her friends, and she told them that my Shama Sundar, he's the Pandit, he's Rasa Pandita, Rasa Sarva Pandita, he's a rasa of all the different the Pandit of all the different rasas. So I have some desire. I want to disguise myself, and I want to go and do some prema purusha lila. I want to examine. We have the word pariksha. Pariksha, Prabhupada said sometimes, means someone who's examining. Pariksha Maharaj, he saw Krishna in the womb. And because he saw Pariksha, he was called Pariksha, and he was always looking for the rest of his life, where is that beautiful form of Krishna? So prema pariksha lila, I want to do this test of Krishna. So Lalita said, then you should become a demigod, a Vidyadhara, and we'll dress you up. So she redressed Srimati Radharani. She took off all of her ornaments, and she put some tight cloth wrapped around her chest, and she put a man's shirt on her, and put a flower garland around her neck, and put a dhoti on her, and dressed Srimati Radharani up like a wonderful Vidyadhara, holding a golden cane. And she was so beautiful, the bees were following her due to her fragrance. And as she was walking along from Javat to Nandagaon, all the different children and aged persons who saw her, they all began to follow Radharani. They're very charmed by her. And finally she reached Nandagaon, and the gatekeeper, the chowkidar there, asked her, what is your purpose in coming here? And this demigod, Vidyadhara, says, I have come for the purpose of meeting Krishna. Please go and inform him. And so Krishna came very quickly, and Krishna didn't recognize Srimati Radharani. She's narma-paṇḍitāḥ. She's the most expert in these tricky kinds of dealings. And when Krishna saw it, my God, this is the most, it's a man, but somehow I'm really attracted by this man. It's the most beautiful man I've ever seen before. And Krishna couldn't even speak for a moment. He said, who are you anyway? And that demigod said, I'm a demigod Vidyadhara, and I have some urgent business to speak with you, but it's private. We have to go to a secluded place. Krishna said, I would love to go to a secluded place with you. Please, let's come. And that demigod said, but this is so secret, no one else should be allowed to come. Krishna said, no problem. And Krishna offered that demigod a very nice seat right next to him. And that demigod said, no, you sit on this, let me sit somewhere else. Because that demigod knows, if she touches him, Krishna's immediately going to recognize, hey, I know who you are. And Krishna says, my dear Vidyadhara, you look so familiar. I think I've seen you somewhere before. And that demigod said in a very grave way, maybe, I don't know, I'm not quite sure. I've come here for a very special purpose. I have a request for you. And Krishna said, you tell me if it's possible, I'll satisfy you. And that demigod said then that your beauty is very, very famous. All the demigoddesses in the heavenly planets, they talk about you, and they would leave their husbands in a moment. Indra's wife, all the wives of the demigods would leave their husbands in one moment to be with you. But you're still not married. You're the only son of the king of Braj. You're misusing your youth. This is very bad. You should get married and have a happy family life. Srimati Radharani is preaching to Krishna. The Christians should get married. And then your life will be happy. She said, I'll tell you what. I have a sister. Her name is Ananga Mohini. And wow, she's, as we would say in America, a hot babe. She's extremely beautiful woman. And not only that, but if you marry my sister, Ananga Mohini, I'm going to give you a lot of money. I have a beautiful palace, and there's lakes and forests nearby there. So, and not only that, but I have hundreds of other daughters who are also very beautiful and qualified. And if you marry Ananga Mohini, I'll give all those girls to you. And you can be very, very happy. So Srimati Radharani is speaking like this to Krishna. And Krishna says, he shakes his head. He said, marriage is like death. And wealth is for Yamaraj, the god of death. He said, marriage is no solution. It's just like falling into a blind well. It's very, very bad. Krishna's told her. Sashika ashama dharma pravitika hoya evivaha suke mora mananahi hoya. Give me the keyboard. Krishna tells her, he says, I have no attraction for the happiness of marriage and living with a wife. And that Vidyadhara, that very wise demigod, says, you're a very learned person, but I'm not satisfied with your theory. Is it on? Yeah. Turn the volume up a little bit. There you go. And that Srimati Radharani is a demigod, preaches to Krishna. Avyaya e upasabde adi arta hoy Indriya samyamya je jamma shabda koi Indriya damana kodi bhartamana je Upayama shabde arta amitari kai Anyashami je indriya jai nahi hoy Krihashrami anayasi The Vidyadhara told Krishna that the word yama means to control the senses. Indriya samyama ye yama shabdakai, that they can be controlled by upayama. Upayama means marriage. And she says it's not possible. Anyashrame je indriya jaya nahi hoy. It's not possible to control your senses in any other ashram. Grihashrami anayasi tari kori jai. Only a grihasta can conquer over them. Just like someone taking shelter in a fort can defeat his enemies, similarly a grihasta who takes shelter of a wife, he can also perform nice dharma. And then that Vidyadhara quoted Manasanghita, Na griham grihamityahur grihini grihamuchate toya hi sahita sarvan purushartan samashnute. Just having a house is not a house, but it's a wife that gives a house meaning. So that Vidyadhara said, this is a very good path, but you have no attraction for it. What is this? And Krishna shook his head and he told that Vidyadhara, Krishna boli Vidyadhara apani pandita dharma shastra bola moksha shastra asangata. He said, Krishna said, Vidyadhara, you're a very big pundit. So you should speak about dharma shastra, because this moksha shastra sangata, it's meaningless. We want to hear about bhakti. You consider all this grihastha life to be very, very nice. But that's not good for us. And Krishna told him then, E rupa jadarati rashi manaroy bala paramatma rashi kirupiti jai. E rupa jadarati. This is jadarati. This is, if you're trying to have some rati or some affection for some jada, some dull material objects. This is not good. Rather, bala, what's very good, paramatma rase, some spiritual paramatma ras. This is what's wanted. And then Krishna, he quoted Bhagavad Gita. Vishaya vinivartante nirahara shadehina rasavarjam yasopyasya param drisva nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, but the taste for sense objects remains. But param drisva nivartate, when you get a higher taste, then you give up the lower things. And in this way, Krishna quotes a few verses of Gita, and he says, Ehena ashrama dharmi nahi prayojan. I don't need this ashram religion. Atma rati suke kala kori jeva japana. I spend my days living in atma rati, spiritual bliss. So this is the origin, this is the original argument about grihastha life and brahmachari life. And it took place between Srimati Radharani in disguise in Krishna. And Radharani was advocating grihastha life, you should get married. And Krishna was saying, no, you should be brahmachari. When Radharani heard these words from Krishna, he said, Vidyadhara Boli, that Vidyadhara said, Tavavaki hasyapai, your words make me laugh. Eshaba vichar tumi pailikotai. Where did you get all these ideas? Huh? So you should know that if you take shelter of family life, then dharma, krami, paramatma, rati, tari, ashidari. Sequentially, dharma and then paradharma will come. Very, very good. You don't understand. The value of grihastha life is very, very important. And then that Vidyadhara quoted Bhagavad Gita. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvanapi nalipyate. Bhagavad Gita 5:7. He speaks of that yoga yukta vishuddhatma, someone who's yoga yukta, who's engaged in, Prabhupada defines that as devotional service. He's vishuddhatma. He's a purified soul. And everybody's dear to him, and he's dear to everyone else. And such a person, kurvan api nalipyate, he's not entangled. When Krishna heard that, Deva Vidyadhara Mukhi Shuni Vichar, when he heard that from that Vidyadhara, Vishmaya Hoila Shama Nahai Se Uttar, Krishna became astonished. How does he know Bhagavad Gita? Krishna hasn't spoken Bhagavad Gita yet, and Krishna couldn't say anything. So then that Vidyadhara spoke up. Now it's time for you to get married. We're going to make some arrangement. And Krishna said, Ami Paramatma Rasi Basi. I like this Paramatma Ras. Vivahadi Karya Kicha Nahi Balava. I don't like this marriage. And that Vidyadhara then folded his arms, Srimati Radharani, and he looked at Krishna. And he said, Roy Boli, Srimati Radharani said, Ami Hoy Siddha Vidyadhara. I'm a Siddha Vidyadhara. I have mystic powers. Bhutadi Trikala Vedya Amara. And I know past, present, and future. And I know your secret. Don't try to keep any secrets from me. And that Vidyadhara said, Parastri Paile, Kena Vivaha Koriba, Adharme Majile Dharme Kemona Asiba. You've already got the wife of some other guy, so why do you want to marry? Parastri, you're already associating with some other woman who's married to another man. So then why do you want to get married? And Krishna said, how can you say that to me? I don't, even in my dreams, I don't think of anybody else's wife. And the Vidyadhara said, really? He said, have you heard of someone named Radha? And Krishna became stunned. What could he say? He doesn't know what. And the Vidyadhara says, let me tell you honestly, that girl's not good for you. Her love is false. How can I rescue? This is narma-paṇḍitāḥ. Radharani is the greatest, most expert person at speaking in a joking kind of way. How can I rescue you? He said, listen, you should think about it. Previously you were supposed to meet. She didn't show up. You decorated the kunj. You went to so much trouble for that. On another occasion, Mukta Charit, Raghunath Das Goswami says, Radharani was sitting in a kunj making garlands with some of her sakhis, and you came there and asked her for just one of them to decorate the cows, but she wouldn't give you. On another occasion, when Krishna killed Aristasura, she criticized you for killing a cow, but it wasn't a cow, it was a demon. And you saved everybody's life. But she said, oh, you have to go and take bath in all the holy places, you're impure. She's a very harsh woman. How can you appreciate someone like her? And Krishna he said, no. Don't talk like this. He said, how can you speak? Nobody's ever spoke to me like this. And he said, how is it possible? Who are you? My dear Mahajan, you're speaking in such a horrible way. You're speaking very unpleasant words, but still, in spite of that, I feel attracted to you. How is that possible? I don't know. And the Vidyadhara said, You can't see who's your real well-wisher. And Krishna then said, you be my well-wisher, but you don't understand the love of Radharani. And he quotes a verse which comes from Gopi Premamrite. Akaitava sudha sattvam radha premamritam buddhim sparshanti yayata sudha raga marganugamina. The Srimati Radharani is a kaitava sudha sattvam. She's a spotless mode of goodness. She's the ocean of that. She's the ocean of love. Premamritam buddhi, the nectarian ocean of love. This is Srimati Radharani. And he says that if someone, sparshati, it just gets a touch from that ocean, then raga marganu gamina, they'll be able to follow on the path of this rag marg. And Krishna then began to speak to Radharani, kind of a story inside of a story. It's a long story. I'm going to try to tell it very quickly. He said that once I was supposed to meet Srimati Radharani, and somehow I got there to the kunj ahead of her, and Radharani was supposed to come, but just when she was supposed to meet with me, her so-called husband Abhimanyu came home, and Jatila told her she has to cook, and I didn't know. I was there waiting for her, so I started decorating the whole kunj, but Radharani's not coming, and after some time, I became angry, and I started smashing everything in the kunj. And Krishna then, he declared at that time very loudly, well, no, I'm out of power, okay. Se piriti kala naga amare dang sila. Oh yeah. Se piriti kala naga amare dang sila. Bishe chata pati pranahi nikashila. He said, my problem is, I've been too attached to women. Too attached to love. But I've been bitten by a black snake of love. And now I'm going to give up all this love. This love is a problem. And I'm going to become a brahmachari. Krishna decided like that. And so Krishna was telling a story to this Vidyadhara. And he said, then at that time, I began to break everything in the kunj, all the decorations. And I became very angry, and I went home. Srimati Radharani, being very concerned that she was supposed to meet me, she sent one of her sakhis to find me, and she found that someone had decorated the kunj in a fantastically beautiful way, with so many flower decorations, but the same person smashed everything. This doesn't look good. So Krishna said, I went home and I went to bed, and the next morning, my mother, Yashoda, she came to me. And she said, my dear son, it's very late, you should get up, take some cream and butter and go milk the cows. And Krishna said, Mata, I don't feel good today. I'm not going to milk the cows. And I don't want to eat anything. I don't want to eat any cooked food. Who cooks Krishna's food? Srimati Radharani. You should call for a doctor. And Krishna told her, excuse me, now I've become a brahmachari. And so Krishna became very, very angry. And Srimati, Mother Yashoda, she told Krishna that you should get up. Here's your nice gold dhoti, gold-colored dhoti. Krishna likes that gold dhoti. It reminds him of Radharani. And Krishna then told her, no, mother, everything gold is bad. Now I'm a brahmachari. And brahmacharis, they don't accept gold things. No gold ornaments. Mother Yashoda says, what about all your picture frames? They're all golden picture frames. Krishna says, you smear black on them. And Mother Yashoda says, what about the sun? It's golden. Krishna said, I won't go outside, close the curtains, because everything golden is bad, and especially golden people. We don't want anything to do with them. And so then Srimati Radharani, it's a long story without going into the wonderful details, she had to dress up like a sannyasi. And she came to Nandagaon, and Mother Yashoda came to the door, and she said, who are you? And he said, I'm a prema bhikari. I'm a beggar of prema. and I want to ask for some alms. And Mother Yashoda said, right away, I'll go get something. And that sannyasi said, no, I'm a very strict sannyasi. I only accept charity from the hands of a brahmachari. And Mother Yashoda said, really? Well, my Gopal, he's a brahmachari now. Well, very good. So you call him. And then Mother Yashoda went and said, Gopal, there's some very effulgent sannyasi here, and you should go and give charity. Krishna said, I don't feel good. I don't want to see. Krishna, you go. This sannyasi is so effulgent. Maybe he may curse us. I don't know. So Krishna went there with a plate of rice and ghee and flour and things. And when Krishna saw that sannyasi, he became so charmed. And he said, but what a beautiful sannyasi. What do you want? And that sannyasi said, first, you have to promise me to give whatever I ask. And Krishna said, well, I'll give you whatever you want. And then that sannyasi said, all that I want is your man, your sulking anger. And I'm actually the daughter of Maharaj Vrishabhanu. And then Krishna began to cry. And then Krishna told Mother Yashoda, he said, Ma, this sannyasi, it's getting late at night, he has nowhere to go. He should stay tonight with me. I'm a brahmachari. I'll be able to take care of him very nicely. And in this way, Radha and Krishna were again reunited. And Krishna related that story, which happened previously, to that Vidyadhara. Mm-hmm. And then Krishna says, you don't understand. The Srimati Radharani, she's a Swadhina Bhatrika. This is her nature. She's a very angry woman. Mm-hmm. She controls her lover. Mm-hmm. And Radharani's love is supremely pure. And when she heard that, Radharani smiled in a soft way, that Vidyadhara, that demigod, and said, you're trying to cover her faults. Okay. You should listen to me. And then at that time, Kundalata and Dhanishta were there. And they said, this Vidyadhara, they could understand who this Vidyadhara was at that time. This is actually Srimati Radharani. And they said, if you can bring your sister here, then Krishna can get married right away. Why are you delaying? You should put this garland on Krishna's neck and then give it back to your sister, and it'll be a Gandharva kind of marriage. And Krishna said, well, what are you talking about? He couldn't understand why Dhanishta and Kundalata are speaking like this. And then Kundalata said, look, this demigod is sweating. You should loosen his cloth, his dress, and fan him. And then Srimati Radharani, the Vidyadhara, started giving very angry looks at Kundalata. And Krishna saw that Krishna was very innocent, he was confused. And then Kundalata began to fan that Vidyadhara, while Dhanishta grabbed the dress of that demigod. And Radharani was opposing that very strongly. And then suddenly everything came out, we can say. And Krishna could understand, he got big eyes. Who is this? This is Srimati Radharani. Oh my gosh. And so this is Prema Pariksha Leela. And this is Radharani's quality. She's narma-paṇḍitāḥ. She's the most expert at joking. She's also Prema Ramya Roop. She's the embodiment of love. The Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Kimva Prema Rasa Moya Krishna Rasarup Tanna Shakti Tanna Sahahoy Eka Roop. That she's non-different from Krishna, but she's the embodiment of divine love. Say Mahabhava Rupa Radha Thakurani. She's the embodiment of Mahabhav. You can't distinguish, you can't say there's Radharani and there's a love of Radharani. Radharani, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says in this verse, Prema Ramya Rupa Vesha Sadgunali Mandita. She is a personification of love. And just as we were speaking in some recent sessions, the Goswamis and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, although this Radhika Ashtakam appears in the discussion between the parrots in Govinda Lilamrita, still, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, if we look very carefully, he's always thinking of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In a similar way that Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami, we were reading Lalita Madhav and how Rupa Goswami is speaking about when Krishna leaves Vrindavan and the gopis, they suffer, and the word used is gambira. They become very, very sober. What is he thinking about when he uses that word gambira? He's thinking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. So in a similar way, when when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying, Prema Ramya Rupa Vesha Sadgunali Mandita, that Srimati Radharani, she's the embodiment of divine love, then what else is he thinking of? Perhaps he's thinking of a verse that he himself wrote in Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhuda Prabhava Deki Prema Rupa Guna. Again, almost the same word, Prema Rupa Guna. Vishmita Haila Gopinatera Dasa Gana. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Prema Rupa Guna. He's the embodiment of the love because he's Radha Bhava Dyuti Sivalitam Nomi Krishna Sarupam. And we can't understand Srimati Radharani except through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we've gone later than I wanted to go. I'm sorry. It was such a nice topic. I want to see if anybody, if devotees have to go or something, you can. Usually we have some reflections from devotees. Let me just read some from the online devotees. Leela Purushottam Prabhu says, can you please share it here? Oh, this statement from Srila Prabhupada. Okay, I'll paste that in a little later. Brajabanita says, my pranams, there are a lot of kinds of jokes and humor. It's very individual. Usual humor is rude. Most people don't have a subtle taste. The same with humor. Well, let me comment about that in a very honest way. I joined a Facebook page called Hare Krishna Humor. And I thought this... Vaishnav humor. And I thought this is going to be a lot of fun. But I was horrified that practically there was two things. One was politics, and they were just talking about Trump, and they were either bashing Trump or bashing the Democrats, or they were bashing women. And there's so many things, people just making fun of women and saying terrible things about women. And I thought, this is not Vaishnav humor. It's very crude. And I realized at that point that humor, you can see how high class a person is by the degree of their humor. So it's a very nice comment. Gaurnitai Prabhu says, humor is working in a group of people who have the same values and cultural aspects and the same mentalities. Yes. Just like I live with Bhakta Rupa Prabhu, and we have our dry American kind of humor that we have. And people from other places sometimes, poor Krishna Kun, she's so simple and pure-hearted, and she just becomes confused. She thinks we're serious about something, and we're like telling her in such a straight face about something, and we tease her in that way. So, because we have some relationship like that, we could come from a similar culture. Ujjwala Rasiga Mataji comments, rasa is about relationship. Thank you. Relationship through, Brajavani says, through poetry, arts, and humor. Yes, all of these different arts are ways to develop relationships. They're the foundations of relationships. And if we try to have relationships aside from that art, and when we say art meaning something creative, something spontaneous coming from the heart, which inspires someone else, you don't really have a very deep relationship. All that you do is you just repeat something in a mechanical kind of way. And you may have the same idea, the same religion, the similar tastes in some way, but you don't develop a very deep relationship unless there's some art there. Okay, Aruna Radha Mataji, nice to see you here tonight. We haven't seen you for a while. She says, there's something fulfilling in discovering her new qualities. When hearing you expand on one specific quality, it's like discovering a whole new side of a person I haven't had access before, the guru of all humor. And Gaurnitai Prabhu says, she's very learned in many transcendental arts, such as performing in the Ras dance. Does it mean that she personally organizes a Ras dance? Or she teaches other gopis, like the new gopis, who do better service? It's said there's two primary Ras Leelas. One is Panchayati Ras. That Panchayati Ras takes place at Vamsivat. And that is called Panchayati Ras, just like we have the word, the Panchayat. Panchayat means like the open house. And we often comment on this. And that Panchayati Ras was the open house for all the different types of gopis. And there were Munichari gopis, Rishichari gopis. There were so many different types of gopis who were there, who had just taken birth as gopis. And they were allowed to be in the Ras Leela. So in answer to your question, yes, Srimati Radharani, she's Rasa Biharani, she's a heroine of the Ras Leela. She's controlling the Ras Leela, but she doesn't do it in a mechanical, legislative, managerial kind of way. Everybody stand in line right now, and you do like this, and you do like that. That's not the way Srimati Radharani organizes things. She's far, far more subtle than that, and far, far more sweet. And so when she sees this Panchayati Ras going on, she thinks, what is this? This is not going to give the topmost pleasure to Shyam Sundar Govinda, Krishna. So she leaves the Ras Leela. And then there's a crisis, because without Radharani there's no Ras Leela, and Krishna leaves. And then later there's another Ras Leela at Chandra Sarovar, not far from Govardhan Hill. We were there, I think, with Jai Gaur last year, the year before, and we gave some katha there. And there's another Ras Leela that takes place there, but that Ras Leela was closed doors. And it was only the Astasakis and the Astamanjaris, just the most intimate gopis with Krishna. And Srimati Radharani organized that, not that she told every gopi how to dance and what to do like this and this. She's far more subtle than that. There has to be some spontaneity. Hari Sari Prabhu was mentioning this to us yesterday in his talk about how Srila Prabhupada, he saw in his dealings, there was always spontaneity. There was always, something could be different, something could be changed. And that's important for bhakti. If everything is so fixed and rigid, it becomes a little dry. So Srimati Radharani, yes, she orchestrates things, but not in the way like we think. Aruna Radha, sorry for joining in the middle of the class a little bit early here, but I needed to hear something about Sri Radha. Well, thank you for taking part so much and all the different devotees. Does anybody here have any reflections they want to share? Adidev Prabhu, do you want to comment anything? Anything any devotees are going to walk away with that you like tonight? Mataji, anything? Can you want to come here? Would you mind? Would you take this to him? Okay. Yeah, it's best like talking. This is our little space area.
I can just put it maybe on the table. I think it's maybe good enough to hear.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for association.
You were mentioning how devotees were telling Prabhupada that everybody in India is trying to cheat us. It's all cheating. And many years ago, I used to read I was the president at that time of Laguna Beach, and I used to, when we get the Vyas Puja book, I couldn't read all of them. So I would select people to see what they say. Just a few, maybe half a dozen. I just and I read one offering by Swarup Damodar Goswami, Swarup Damodar Maharaj, and he shared. He was talking, offering in his offering to Prabhupada. He recalled an incident where this idea of Indians being cheating, especially to the West, and Prabhupada added, he said, yes, in the bazaar, like Loy Bazaar, whatever, in the bazaar, when you do not know it, but when they see you coming, they say, here comes the damn cheap babas. The damn cheap babas. And Prabhupada said, yes. Especially, this is American lingo. Damn cheap. Prabhupada said, yes, you are coming, and you see something you like, and you say, how much is this? And you do not know that the man saw you half a block away, and he already figured out the price. He already jacked it up 10 times. And when he tells you the price, this is in the beginning, early days, devotees were so naive. He said, and these American devotees, when they heard the price, they would look at one another and say, "That's damn cheap." And that went around the bazaar. People they probably said, when they see you coming, they say, "Here comes the damn cheap bubbas." So, because, and because of that, partially you have to say prices began to go up in everything. Because they were calculating the exchange rate. And if you do that all the time, it seems like it's very cheap. Anyway, that was just one little thing.
Thank you very much. It reminds me of a story that I heard here in Mayapur, that when the first devotees were coming to Mayapur, it was like 20 paisa or something to cross over the Ganga from Navadvip. And one of the devotees came over the boat. It was like 20 paisa, and he asked, "How much is it?" And they looked at him and said, 200 rupees. And the Western devotee kind of thought for a moment, calculated, "Wait, yeah, that's a good price for a boat ride, 200 rupees.
Yeah, you really didn't know.
And he gave him.
My first visit, I'll quickly share an experience. My first visit to Mayapur, I wanted to get a mridanga. I wanted to purchase a mridanga. And I went by myself. I thought, couldn't get any local or any even devotee living here to go. So I went and I just told the rickshawwala as I crossed the Ganga, I just said, "Mridanga wala," and he knew where to take me. He takes me to the mridanga wala. And I picked out a mridanga. The guy had a room half the size with about 20 or 30 mridangas. When I asked, "How much is the price of this one?" he said, 350 rupees. Now, it was my first visit to India. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what's the price of a mridanga. But I'm a little street smart. I come from the islands, and I knew this price has been padded, So I said, in a very polite, I said, it's a really nice mridanga, and your prices seem reasonable, but I can't afford it. That was the route I took, to say, I can't afford it. I said, "Look, I'm a brahmachari. I don't have any, And instantly he lowered the price. He says, "Okay." Because I said, I can't afford it, so I started walking out the door. And he grabbed my hand, he said, "Okay." 250 rupees. He came down, and I was amazed that he could lower the price by 100 rupees so fast. And meanwhile, I'm calculating in my head the exchange rate, because I didn't have a lot of money. I wasn't like coming from a big temple, so I said, but I still felt that was too overpriced. So I just give him another thing and said, I really appreciate how you've lowered everything, but the problem is I cannot afford it. So thanks, and I'm heading to the door. He grabs my hand. He goes down another 100 rupees. 150 rupees. And I'm calculating, I think in those days, what were we getting? I think it was like 50 rupees for $1 American. I don't know what it is now even. 7. So he wouldn't let me leave. He grabs my hand. "Prabhu, no, please." He comes down to 150. And I'm thinking, that's amazing. But I'm not letting him know that I think it's amazing. So I told him, I want to know how far he can go. So I gave him my story again, saying, "It's really, really, I really appreciate you giving me these discounts, but I can't afford it. And I've given him the most sad face I could put on. He said, he got a little, I could see he was like getting a little irritated. He said, okay, you tell me how much you want to pay. What do you think it should be? And I thought, oh God, I don't know what the going rate is. I really don't know. So I thought I'd make a guess. I thought I got nothing to lose. The most he can do is say, no. So I said, well, since you asked me, I would say 90 rupees. And when I said that, he erupted. I'm sure he was cursing me in Bengali because by the look on his face and the tone of his voice, and he was like shooing me out the door. And I said, take it easy, you know. You ask me and I tell you, now you're getting upset. And meanwhile, I had a rickshaw while waiting for me by the side of the, by the street, in the street. It's a small shop. I said, rickshaw, let's go. We'll go to another Mridanga. Well, I'm sure there's others. And before I could put my foot in the rickshaw, he come and he grabbed me. He says, okay. And he's like exhausted. He said, okay, 90 rupees. That's not the end of the story. As I'm like, and I'm in like a minus seventh heaven. I'm feeling so nice. I hug in the Mridanga. I said, let's get Ganga. So when we get to the Ganga, I got on in those days they didn't have big boats like they have today. They were like these gondolas, You still see a few of them around, but they don't take passengers. So I got on it, and there was one man, a Bengali gentleman. He had with an umbrella, and he's dressed in white khadi. And just two of us on the boat. And he asked me, the gentleman, when we were like halfway across the river, he probably observed that I was in love. I was holding the Mridanga, and I got it for 90 rupees, So he said, excuse me, what country you are coming from? And he could speak English, So I said, I'm America. So, and then he said, do you mind? No, he said, did you purchase this Mridanga in Navadvip? And I said, yes, I just got it, as a matter of fact. And he said, do you mind telling me how much you paid for this Mridanga? And I was a little proud. They said pride comes before a fall. I was a little proud, and I said, oh, I only paid 90 rupees for it. And he said, there is no 90 rupees, there's no Mridanga for 90 rupees in Navadvip. There is 30 rupees, 40 rupees, and 50 rupees only. Only. I started to laugh. I thought, the guy still got me. Right? He still got me. And when I came over, I took a rickshaw to go to the Mayapur Chandrodaya. There was only the long building. That's where we stayed. In the Chakra building, that's where everybody stayed. So I got in on the first flight of steps, and I'm walking down. I was, because I stayed at practically the other end. And as I was passing the room, there was a few brahmacharis in a room, and they called out to me. I didn't know them, but people knew me. I said, Agnidev. So I stopped, and I looked in the room. There was like 5 brahmacharis in the room. And they said, they wanted me to come in the room, and I'm holding my Mridanga. And they said, did you buy a Mridanga in Navadvip? I said, yeah, I just got it. And they said, we just bought 5 of these. They had 5 Mridangas on the floor, standing up like that, They say, we just bought it earlier this morning. And they said they wanted my opinion. Somehow they felt I would know what a good mridanga is, but I didn't really. I said, sure. And I tapped the heads, and I said, sounds good to me. And they said, good. And then one of them said, you know, we only paid 500 rupees for each one. And I was about to I almost gave it away. I said, really? And they said, how much did you pay for yours? And I didn't have the heart to tell them I only paid 90. So I just lied. I said, something like what you paid. Because I knew if they went back to Navadvip, if I told them 90 and they go back to the Walla, he wouldn't give them back the money. All sales are final. It's not like in America you can buy a pair of shoes and wear it for for a week and go back and get your money back. But here, it's the same day, the morning, and they're not getting it because that money is. But that's how things were being inflated. Price was going up because people from the West were damn cheap babas. They'd pay it. Now mridangas are thousands.
2,000 rupees for decent one. She looked at one the other day.
5,000 rupees, I've heard.
She looked at one the other day. A vegetarian, not a vegetarian.
Ahimsa.
Yeah, ahimsa. 10,000 rupees.
And you're not even sure it is ahimsa. Because there's cheating. The cheating propensity is there. But
okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. It's
Anybody
late.
else have a reflection you want to share? Something? Anupani or something? Why don't you come over here and sit down? They can sit here.
We need to take
You're going to have to go. Thank you so much, Evan. Thank you. Why don't you give them. So we'll be right back in just 1 second.
Can we give some prasadam?
Yeah, please.
What?
Do you want to take some prasadam or some cookies?
Give them a cookie.
She's hungry.
Okay, we can pack it for her in the back.
Yeah, pack some in the bag for her.
Okay, for you?
I'm good.
Okay, and for you?
I'll stay if it's okay.
Okay, please.
So, Lila Purushottam, what are you going to walk away with tonight? Do you have any reflections?
I knew this wasn't going to end at 7.
It never does. They just official.
You're muted or something. I can't hear you. Speak louder.
It was so nice to see and hear from Agnidev Prabhu. And I was happily again reminded of that story you narrated for Radhashtami Katha also. That was great. And I would still like to ask you for that reference on the first quote of Prabhupada you gave today.
Oh, about don't boycott the gopis?
Yes.
Okay, I'll paste that.
There was one before that I wanted to ask.
Krishna Kun wants one also. Okay. Thank you so much, Agnidev Prabhu. You're a hero. Should I make sure the light's on for him? Okay. Things are a little confusing. We got people coming and going. Let's see. Sorry, everybody's talking here. It's a little confusing. I'm looking for the statement from Srila Prabhupada.
Until now, the Prema Samput was one of my very favorite pastimes. This one is winner.
Yeah, we told it a little bit simply. There it is right there. Regarding the standards for BTG. It's a conversation with BTG staff, 24 December 1969. Again, interesting how in the early days Prabhupada said so many things like this. Okay, anybody else? Do you have any reflections, Krishna?
It didn't appear here.
I'm sorry? Just a second. It's because somebody wrote me privately. Zoom's a little... There we go. Now it's to everybody. You see it? You have any reflection, Krishna Khan?
Mataji was saying that
She wants to share something?
Mataji was saying who left. Sorry, I don't know her name.
Just say
The Lilavatar Mataji, who just left, said she wanted to share this reflection. She just was really overwhelmed by the lila of Srimati Radharani examining Krishna's love. Just this fact.
Lila Purushottam, anything else, sir?
It's still not here somehow.
It's supposed to be posted to everyone. I'll post it also in our WhatsApp group.
Oh, good. Yeah, that will be best actually for me.
Yeah. Okay. Krishna Kun, did you have some reflection you want to share? No? Okay. Anybody else? Jagor, maybe?
Yes, Ru. I really appreciated when you made the point that we offer Krishna what he likes, what he really likes, and who he really likes is Radharani and the gopis. So I was thinking that the Brijabasis are always doing that. They're always trying to offer Radha and Krishna to each other. They're just always making arrangements for that. So that was very sweet.
Very nice. That's our life. Radha Krishna Pranamor Yugala Kishore. Jivane Nidani. To bring Radha and Krishna together. Yugala Kishore. Thank you, Prabhu. Bani Biharni has anything maybe?
She said she doesn't have anything today.
Gorni Tai Prabhu, do you have anything? What you're walking away with?
Just my feelings, like this mood to be here with the smiling devotees, devotees. So it's like a vacation. I'm vacation. Because here a little bit more confused the situation. So I'm really happy to be with you and then just relax, This Krishna Katha is like a life and soul. So organizations are a little bit troublesome, but we need to do something. It's just create an atmosphere. So thank you very much to allow me to be here.
Well, thank you. We missed you last week.
I do have a question.
Krishna Kun has a question, okay?
This subtle humor, you were mentioning how subtle someone's humor is a sign of her depth as a Vaishnava, basically. And I'm wondering if there is anything specific by which we can develop this subtlety, because it seems like such an important thing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about this. Subtle discrimination is extremely important for Vaishnava, etc.
Yeah.
But in humor, especially.
So we develop that subtlety in different ways, primarily through being attentive, because attentiveness is the root of subtlety. Mm-hmm. If you're not being attentive to someone, how can you be subtle? There's no subtlety there. And so, for those persons who are musicians, you have subtlety when you're playing the mridanga, the harmonium. You have subtlety when you're making a painting. You have subtlety when you're cooking. Spices are very, very subtle. And we have our subtlety in our japa. We're trying to be very, very attentive to Krishna. We want to hear from Krishna. We want to be subtle in all of our devotional activities. And by practicing that and by always trying to hear, then we cultivate that quality more and more. And it's not always that it's... Prabhupada used to tell stories about Gopal Ban. I think that was his name. And some of those stories were a little kind of crude. Also the humor, and sometimes Radha and Krishna's humor also is a little kind of coarse, apparently. But what's subtle is the feelings that are there. It's not just, sometimes Krishna may make some brahmachari joke or joke about women or something. It's not that that someone can never make a joke about women or make a joke about men or something. But when it's done in a very coarse kind of way, it's very tasteless. It's disturbing, actually. I dropped out of that Facebook group. It was just because it just disturbed my mind. It was really very, very unpleasant. I felt it was offensive, actually. There's a fine line between humor and being offensive, for that matter, too. Anapaini has something?
Amazing. I really haven't thought how important humor is in the
Humor is
spiritual
very
world.
important
Today
in all rasas.
speaking about Narada Muni and how Narada Muni is entertaining Lord Narayan and his wives in Vaikuntha, and it specifically says in Brihad Bhagavatamrita how, because his presentation is so clever, they were all laughing. And I was thinking, of course, about Madhu Mangal here in the Rasa Lila. He has the same function, and it seems like it's a very important service. It's like I just never really thought about that, like as being such an integral part of Krishna's Leelas. Of course, we knew about this because Nectar of Devotion Prabhupada gave this to us, Rupa Goswami did, but I just kind of...
Yeah, it's not just the essence of the relationship with Krishna, but it's the essence of all rasa. It's the essence of all rasa, all relationships. An important aspect of it, maybe not the essence, but there should be some humor. There's some sweetness there. Okay. Do you have anything you want to add, Mataji? You're walking away with tonight? Reflection. Okay. Thank you. So good you came. For us, this is a party. This is like, oh my God, it's a huge thing. Anapaini Radha has something. Krishna Kunchi, let her sit here.
Lila Avatar Mataji, she just went with me there for that.
I did.
Sit down.
What you said? Okay, good. I just wanted to share that it was really nice to hear, particularly about one quality, is how Radharani, she is Pandita, a narma-paṇḍitāḥ in joking art of jokes. And I was thinking about your previous katha, which you gave months ago, maybe a few months ago, 3 months ago, about art, bhakti and art. You give 3 or 4 classes, and that the purpose of all arts to move the heart, to touch the heart, and how Radharani, she touched the heart, she moves the heart of Krishna by being expert in all this art, and it's so beautiful. So when we engage in some art in our services, for me it's really important to have this meditation that Radharani, she is an expert and she's moving the heart of Krishna by her arts, and we assisting our Guru Maharaj in this service, who is serving his Guru Maharaj, and finally to Shrimati Radharani, to help her to move the heart of Krishna. I think it's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
I should finish with a little story then, because I was thinking of telling us during our katha, but when we speak about narma, about joking, I started off by speaking something about from Srila Prabhupada. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. Where Prabhupada said Krishna wants to be controlled. He wants to be ordered by the Sakhis. You don't come here. He wants to be defeated by his friends and refuse Radharani's darshan. So there's one story that the gopis, they used to carry their milk products in Barsana, and they were going through a particular place, and Krishna and the boys were hiding. And when the gopis came, then the boys jumped out and they said, you have to pay us some tax, and there was some back and forth words and things. And the gopis were speaking in a very harsh way to Krishna, apparently. But actually those harsh words are giving pleasure to Krishna. And then finally they said, okay, we'll let Purnamasi decide this. And Purnamasi said, look, you let the girls go, and they'll come again tomorrow, and they'll pay their tax. They agreed on that. So very good. So the gopis, what they did, they went there early the next day, and they hid themselves. And they were waiting. And so then when Krishna came with Madhu Mangal, the gopis jumped out and they dressed Krishna up in a sari. They tied him up and they dressed him up in a sari, and they put a pot of yogurt on his head, and they broke the yogurt and they made the yogurt go all over Krishna. And they started teasing Krishna in this way. And it was very humiliating for Krishna in one sense. But although he's humiliated by that, the amazing thing is it gives Krishna pleasure. He gets so much pleasure. As Prabhupada said, Krishna wants to be refused darshan by Radharani. Krishna wants to be defeated by his friends, and Krishna gets pleasure from that. But there's some, externally he'll complain, how are you doing this to me? Don't you know who I am? I'm the son of the king of Braj, you shouldn't do this. But that's just part of the whole drama. So this narma is a very, very important thing. As devotees, as persons, as we become more subtle and go deeper into bhakti and go deeper into our relationships with each other, that naturally comes out. We become more subtle, and we have a more subtle sense of humor and ability to appreciate others in that way. So I want to stop there. It's really, really late for us. We were going to stop at the latest at 7:30, and it's almost 8:30. So thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. We'll see everybody again next Monday. Hare Krishna.